last story from today is actually about the induction of our new government. Let's just have a look at it, because as you will be aware, Chewy, you've just led into the conversation around, the use of Maori and that kind of stuff. There was quite a lot of it today, so I'm not sure how they kind of managed to stand there the whole time when Maori words were coming out. Like for example, they sung the national anthem in Maori. Now, I don't know why they did this. Surely they should have sung it in English first, prominent, and then Maori, but they did it in Maori first. So there's something going on I can't quite figure out, but let's have a look at the story from today.
New Zealand, welcome your new government. Belting out the anthem. And one by one, taking the oath of allegiance.
I, Winston Raymond Peters, swear that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance to His Majesty.
This is the bit, the hairless bit. You'll listen to this, and all his hairs.
King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God.
Aotearoa's native tongue weaved throughout the ceremony. But with a new administration comes a change of direction and a backward step in terms of te reo Māori.
Te reo is fantastic. We want to encourage people to use more te reo across. But what we're saying...
We want to encourage more people to use te reo Māori by removing it as much as we can from public life. But, it's like that whole thing about, like women's rugby, for example, how when they got all that exposure around the Women's Rugby World Cup, what they're saying is it's like Sky TV going, we're not going to show women's rugby at all anymore, but we're really going to support to see if we can get growth in women's rugby.
This is a fucking theme of his this week. So we want people to use te reo more, but we're not going to do anything to encourage it. We definitely want to hit our carbon targets, and we don't want to add to greenhouse gases, but we are going to open up oil and gas exploration again. We don't want smoking to continue, and we want it to go down on the trajectory that it's on, but we're not going to help that either. Luxon wants it both ways every time. Every fucking time. He doesn't want to change anything, but he does want the good outcome. He's a fucking dreamer.
It's almost like he's full of shit. Should we keep going? Let's keep going.
Yes.
Saying very clearly with respect to government departments is we want everybody to navigate their government.
Despite both National and ACT voting for the 2016 Māori Language Bill, which stated the Māori language should be used in the promotion of government services, the coalition is set to order all public service departments to change their names to English and communicate in English.
What was that whole thing about wasting, the last government being wasteful on road signs and changing them? This government comes in, one of the first things they do is asking all the government departments to change their names. Isn't that kind of wasteful spending with all the signs and that kind of stuff having to be changed? Or am I missing something, Joey?
It's been done. Just like everybody's freaking out, like they put a dollar value on it, like they're going to do a rebrand every now and then anyway, and just next time have some more Māori in it. And it's like this with the street sign. Street signs get old and need replacing. So you just make it a thing like, oh, does the name have a macron on it that it's supposed to have? Can we get a bilingual sign in there? It's not like the government is going, well, we've got to spend fucking $25 billion to replace all the signs in the next 6 months.
All right. So apparently we've just heard from Jenna that they're going to be replacing all the signs, etc. Here we go.
English too. How quickly do you want the government departments to start using basically English only or English first?
We'll work that through. We've got our first cabinet meeting tomorrow. We've got a second cabinet meeting on Wednesday. Our focus for this week is actually to prepare our 100-day plan of action.
The incoming government, which campaigned on cutting government waste, has no idea of the cost.
Look, I don't have costings on that right now, but that's a government policy that'll be worked through in the country.
You know also how big their cabinet is? Bigger than the last government. But, smaller government, smaller public service.
Coming weeks, I suspect.
It's also unclear how far the remit stretches.
I'll continue to use Kia ora on a daily basis.
Whether it's just agencies like Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand and the Transport Agency, Waka Kotahi, or Crown entities like our National Museum, Te Papa, for instance.
There you go.
You're going to rename Te Papa?
No, what we've said is, look, just where there is Māori-facing agencies, they should stay in te reo.
So you could change the name of Te Papa?
We'll work that out in government as to what we're going to do.
Well, the difference between that and Waka Kotahi. Tell me this. How many boats have you ever seen going down the road? How many boats have you ever seen going on the road anywhere in the world?
The sense of the occasion.
You know, it's very easy if you Google on YouTube, like boats on trailers. I actually see quite a lot of boats going down roads. You know, I used to own a trailer sailor, and we put it on the tow bar and put it. So actually, technically, I've seen lots of boats going down the road. Winston, you fuck knuckle.
Perhaps lost on Winston Peters, who minutes after swearing to be a true and faithful Deputy Prime Minister launched straight back to form.
First 5 questions.
Turning our question about his te reo policy into a direction to the state-owned broadcasters TVNZ and RNZ. How quickly do you expect government departments and government agencies to act in removing te reo Māori?
Which TVNZ and RNZ, which are taxpayer-owned, understand this new message. We'll see whether these people, with the media and journalists, are they independent? Well, isn't that fascinating? I've never seen the evidence of that the last 3 years.
Outlandishly and incorrectly claiming the government had, quote, bribed the media through the Public Interest Journalism Fund.
You can't defend $55 million of bribery.
Repeating for effect.
No, you cannot defend $55 million of bribery. Get it very...
He obviously doesn't know, or he does. And as you say, speaking to the cookers, I've told you guys this who weren't aware. We're here in New Zealand on their funding. They fund projects. So, for example, Jack Tame's program, Q&A, has NZ on their funding. 6 o'clock news doesn't have any. Any of those specials before the election that we got booted off YouTube for, one of the reasons TVNZ wanted to enforce that, whether they were right or they were wrong, is they have to pay for that themselves through advertising. So I just need everybody to know, RNZ, different story, because they're ad-free, they're completely public, completely. TVNZ, not the case. NZ on Air funds projects, and One News is not considered a project. So it's not, they don't actually fund very much of TVNZ News when it comes to their news content. But Chewy, I think you're right. And this is where I think if he keeps this up, remember we had that conversation about Plunkett. Sorry, I didn't mean to mention. I'll only say his name twice, because if it's 3 times, he'll turn up behind you. And how at the start of him trying to build that, piles of diarrhea that he calls a platform, he really went to the cookers. He went to them, and we had the conversation that his dilemma was going to be, because that's not his beliefs. Does he stay pitching to them, which was an audience that was growing, or does he risk going back to where he actually truly thinks and believes? He'll lose them, and then he may have no one. He made a choice and a decision to go back there upon direction from the Right Family Foundation, to be clear. But since then, he's been slowly drifting back. Now, I actually think, and I wonder if what will happen with Winston Peters is he'll have to have that same decision as well. Because if he keeps pitching this stuff to the cookers like that, there will be people who like Winston, who are fans of Winston, who will get sick of it and who won't buy it. That will be a percentage of his voting base. And so he'll either have to choose at some stage to go full on in that area of dis and misinformation, or he'll have to move away from it, go back to where his natural roots would be, which are the Blue Rinse Brigade, and then he'll lose the cookers. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think that I get the sense that him keeping on doing this kind of stuff will cost him more than it will gain him when it comes to votes and support in the next election. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Like I was prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt that once they got him there, he would lose them for fucking dust. And he's still talking to them. So, if he's talking about the journalism fund, which is their catch cry that was just bribes for media and that sort of thing, it's blatantly false. The man's got a brain in his head, I assume, unless it's withered and died. He knows the reasons for it. He must do.
Yeah. Yep, of course he does.
News is not profitable. So if we want to continue getting news out of our public broadcasters, then something needs to be done. Otherwise, we will just have The Bachelor on loop.
A lot of that public interest journalism fund went to places and people that would have lost their jobs through COVID if it hadn't been for the fund. So like rural places got quite a bit of money, maybe not per capita, but a good percentage of it went into rural places up in Wanaka, down here in Otago, in Queenstown, places on the West Coast. ODT probably access them. I'm not sure about that, but it wasn't just like this is all going to TVNZ so they can sell Labour's narrative. And just so I don't want to have this conversation because I kind of don't want to defend for them, but this is how anything with NZ on Air goes, right? This is how the funding goes. You tell the funding agency what you're going to do. They fund it, you do it. At no point does the funder go, we want you to do this. You submit a proposal that says, this is our project. They either support it or not, and then you do your project. That's how the funding model works. So it's just all horseshit. It's all horseshit. And that's one of the places that people are like, I can't say his name again because it might bring him up in the rear, actually spin. I mean, remember that man, that pile of pancake batter, remember, he got profile because of public funding on Fair Go and on RNZ. And he's still living off that profile today, pulling up the ladder and not wanting anyone else or questioning anyone else who might have access to public funding. It's just all a shell game. It's all a shell game. All right, let's get to the end of this because I want to go to bed.
Be clear.
His new boss, completely unawares of his 2IC's antics, just stoked to be part of the occasion.
Every minister understands the responsibility that they have.
The responsibility of running a country.
Kia ora, Jenna. Well, the sworn in, what's the rest of the week's agenda like?
So the Cabinet will get their first spin in the Cabinet chairs tomorrow, but that will be more of a photo opportunity along with signing off the rules of Cabinet. The first proper meeting won't happen until Wednesday, and then the House is not expected to sit until next week. So there's a bit more pomp and pageantry to get through before this lot can actually get down to business. But this is now the second major ceremonial moment of Christopher Luxon's Prime Ministership that has been overshadowed by his first chosen Deputy Prime Minister, Winston Peters' anti-media antics. Ministers in the past have faced weeks of pressure for any perception that they may be trying to exert influence over our state broadcasters, and rightly so. Their editorial independence is sacred. It may have been okay for Winston Peters to have a lash at media on the election campaign, but this is something different. He is the Deputy Prime Minister, and this is about democracy. It is also unbecoming of a Deputy Prime Minister to falsely accuse the media of taking bribes from a government, and you can bet your bottom dollar that this particular Deputy Prime Minister and serial litigant Winston Peters would at least threaten to haul someone through the courts if the same baseless accusation was levelled at him.
And that's an interesting thing coming from Jenna Lynch from the commercial wing of Discovery New Zealand. Basically, you can see when Three or an American station now, Discovery New Zealand, is basically saying, shut the fuck up about TVNZ, you know someone stepped over a line, Joey.
I wonder what would happen if the media just boycotted Winston. Like,
Yeah.
just don't go to his stand-ups. Don't wait for him at an airport. Don't fucking engage in his circus. I wonder if it would turn for him at that point, that he goes, oh, actually, I do want people to listen to me, and there is a reason.
I don't think that matters.
Will he just go, fantastic, the shadows, no one's
No,
paying attention.
I don't think it would matter for about 2 years and 2 months. And then for the last 10 months of this term, it would matter again.